So you're not going to get to see Hansama on that Lucian, not going to be playing that duo this time around. So it's going to be a completely different look here on the red side. They do go down that misfortune path for the first time we see her tonight, and then we'll get the Lee Sin pick here as well. The question is, will they match this with a Sylas to deal with that Ryze? We haven't seen that pairing so much tonight here. I'm curious to see if Rogue wants to pick it up.
Yeah, well, it is going to be two very high priority picks. I love that they banned the Graves and the Yuumi. The desk was talking about meta read, right? And I think as far as red side bans are concerned, these three look pretty well read. To me, one of them even has a book, for goodness sake. As the Jhin and the Leona taken away, very standard bottom lane here for FPX. We still don't necessarily know where the Ryze is going. Some flexibility there, but maybe Doinb isn't going to be a hipster in this particular game, as Larssen gets the very high priority LeBlanc.
Yeah, LeBlanc combo that goes way back.
LeBlanc, I get it. That's good one.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. But is a pick that has a lot of skirmishing power, makes damage, can snowball incredibly well. And again, looking at that Domlon game, one of the main reasons why that game took as long as it did was because Larssen was able to pump out an insane amount of damage in team fights and wasn't afraid to get as close to death as humanly possible, as long as he made sure that he got his mark. And against FPX already, like with that Jhin, we've seen a lot of teams really kind of revert back to what we saw in 2020 so often, kind of leave the Jhin on his own, he's fine, and once his skirmish breaks out, he'll just get the Cronicler going, maybe throw out a W, and a team with as much mobility as this, I think, can really threaten that Jhin, and if you are able to do that consistently, should work out very well.
Now, I like this Nami pick because it's something, well, not necessarily going to be locked in here. There's a lot of CC that they're looking for. Obviously, the Rakan and the Rel, two great ways to set up bullet time, especially in team fights. You can see it in lane as well, are taken away. So looking for another engaged support here. It looked like we'll actually go with a safer Braum pick in the end.
Wow, Trymbi cycled through so many fun champions and then landed on Braum.
Yeah, it was like the ultimate buzzkill there, but
yeah. Little bit of a shame.
Speaking of fun champions.
Yeah, let's see whether it is just going to be like, this would be extraordinarily cut and dry here for FPX if they lock away something like a Jayce here for Nuguri. That would put the Ryze, of course, in the hands of Doinb, definitely his most famous champion. And Tian, thinking about the Viego here as well. And I feel like in the last game that we saw, very standard drafts to come through from LNG and from the Mad Lions. And FPX have done the same thing once again, with Rogue following suit. Let's see whether there's going to be an interesting one here for the last pick, as the Rumble is going to be locked away. I love Equalizer and Bullet Time. That is a cool combo.
Incredibly strong combo, and I have liked the Viego into teams that are really have a strong type of early skirmishing draft, right? That are really looking, or even if they don't get a draft like Fnatic, they'll just go for it. You know these teams, you know that they want to skirmish early, but picking it into a Braum, as well as a LeBlanc, which I think is a really strong 2v2, to me is a risk. The laning phase for Rumble into Jayce, I think, can maybe get punished by Nuguri, who we know is incredibly comfortable on this champion. But in terms of team fighting power and overall comp, I think that Rogue have something very similar to what we saw when they played against Domlon. There's a lot of mobility here, a lot of threat, but also good team fighting. And if you don't fall too far behind in the early to mid game, this comp can do basically anything you want it to do.
Yeah, I feel like Rogue is going to have to take a lot of these fights somewhat defensively later on, too. Yeah, in the early game, you could definitely have a lot of power. You can look for a little bit of skirmishing with that Lee Sin pick, but Bullet Time doesn't have a lot of great setup for it in this composition. However, if you do look to take these fights defensively, control vision around these choke points, you can use Bullet Time as a disengage when you do see that Viego come through. But there's a lot of range here on the side of FunPlus Phoenix, so I have to say I like their draft better. It looks stronger in terms of the ability to control laning early, scales up pretty well, a lot of range, a lot of consistent damage.
Yeah, I like it as well. And I feel like it is just going back to basics as well. Like, Tian, he had 2 games on the Jarvan, and then he's like, all right, that didn't work. Guys, let's just do things that we know are good. Doinb goes to Ryze, obviously his default champion. Nuguri on Jayce. Of course, everyone in the world knows how ridiculously good he is at this champion. And Lwx and Crisp on a very standard bottom lane. Crisp with a whole lot of roaming potential, can affect the rest of the map and just be basically unkillable because Leona is pretty silly when she presses her W. I just feel like this is a very standard and solid draft to come through from FPX, and I'm looking forward to seeing whether Rogue's carpet comp can make things work with that Glacial Fissure and the Equalizer. Do you like carpet comp? Does that work?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
You guys
Yeah,
are
no, I'm on board.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah.
We don't have a lot of carpet in Korea compared to when I grew up, so I'm always happy to put more carpet in my life.
Just want more carpet.
Yeah, just any
you
more
like
carpets.
shag pile carpet?
What, like what?
Shag pile carpet. You know what shag pile carpet
It's like the
is?
really high type, right? The really soft.
It's like carpet
fuzzy.
that hasn't had a haircut for 2 years.
Yeah.
That sounds like a no for me. I don't
That's
know.
hard to clean though.
It's impossible to vacuum. It's very,
Yeah.
it's not exactly the greatest.
need
But
to
if
get like
you get it brand new, you're like, oh my goodness, it's like walking on a mattress.
You need like a professional cleaner, I'd imagine.
I don't know what
It's
you need.
rough.
I've never had a shag pile. I didn't grow up in the 60s, despite how old I am. I didn't quite grow up that long ago.
Just a few years shy,
Yeah.
of course.
And you talked already about how good Crisp has been when he's actually able to impact on the Leona. Leona roams have been a big part of the tournament thus far. Not just Leona, but I think she's been the most iconic because of how unreasonably hard she feels to kill at times. And I do actually like the Rogue bot lane in terms of being able to both match the 2v2, because Braum into an engager board is always going to feel good, and MF has been widely considered one of, if not the strongest AD carry up there with Lucian, and the laning pressure is quite strong as
Yeah,
go
there's
in.
a Zenith Blade, level 1, and we're already battling, but Hansama creates enough distance between himself and Chris, but it's still a bit of a health advantage here for FPX. Lwx just dancing grenades across them.
Yeah, and with the range advantage here at level 1, MF is really going to struggle to do anything here, so they just have to sit back and wait. She'll, of course, be able to heal up with the pot and the biscuit, but still, really nice trade here for FPX early.
Yeah, we saw Hansama go for the... Oh, they're going in again.
Yeah, level 2 actually just gained it. Trymbi's going to get taken down. That timing utterly beautiful, and first blood for the bottom lane of FPX. And Lwx, of course. That's why I had W in my brain. Too many acronyms down there, but absolutely fantastic play here from FPX's bottom lane.
Yeah, and it ties into Hansama going for the pressy attack and going for double up level 1, which in terms of like trying to get some early poke going, we've seen a lot of Comet MFs as well, which have a little bit more pressure on that first level. Zenith Blade also leveled by Crisp, able to actually get on top of Hans, and early leads for the FPX bot lane are not a good sight if you're on a UFIC, because as we already talked about, Hansama, he was the big win condition for Rogue in their game against Damwon. And then it also ties into, if FPX do look weak, it's generally because the bot side is struggling. If they are not on the back foot, Nuguri has Braum on top side. Tian has been able to find his way throughout the entirety of the jungle. Oh, I do think he might get double scuttled here.
Yeah, I want to point out this top matchup. You kind of honed in on it for just a second there, but remember, this is a team that against Damwon Kia played Fiddlesticks into Canyon's Talon, and now you've picked into Nuguri's Jayce as Rumble. So you're going to have a bad time early. It's going to be a lot about absorbing that pressure, because there is a reward at the end if you can survive through the hardships. But as we saw with that pick just yesterday, the Fiddlesticks, surviving through those hardships isn't something that Rogue is able to do so far too much in this group stage with these somewhat niche picks.
Yeah, and look, Rumble still works out very, very well when you get to that mid-game as well, and if Rogue can get towards some of these early skirmishes and team fights after that level 6 mark, they can certainly make some things happen, but, you know, that bottom lane not getting off to speed at the beginning is certainly a bit of a worry here for Rogue as Crisp walks over a ward. So Larssen knows what's going on, but probably doesn't know that Tian is there as well, as Doinb going to get chained up. But not actually going to move out of the way. Doesn't want to break those chains. Now Lwx just underneath this turret by himself. Trymbi runs on forward. That's going to be the Winter's Bite, as Lwx is going to get stunned up. They're not going to dive the turret or anything like that, and Crisp makes his way back down.
Yeah, really nice just knowing that Crisp had roamed there. Just going to go for an aggressive trade. Very well played. This is very, very risky here.
Don't mind the counter gank timing though for Inspired. Turns up, Nuguri's going to get queued. Taking down to 200 health, but he stands his ground. It does a fair bit of work there to Inspire, but is still just going to walk away with not very much of a health bar.
Don't really want to risk it there as Rogue. You can hold off a little bit longer on showing Inspired, and then maybe they go for a play, but if that backfires, because it is of course a 3v2, then you'll be in a rough shape. Don't really need to necessarily go for that. Do want to highlight that like Lwx having to use his exhaust that early on might actually become a problem. Crisp also went for a roam, which one, didn't work out, but also secondly, has put him on a sizable disadvantage in terms of experience. And if HunSama and Trymbi can stay within that lane, hit a level 6 timing window, and find a kill or two to kind of get Hans rolling, that could be a good way for Rogue to kind of get a grasp on this game. Because thus far, FPX, they haven't been able to blow it open, but a 1k gold lead at this early on in the game is still sizable.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think that the bot duo of FPX will be very aware of that potential timing, because bullet time as 6 is hit is such a terrifying ultimate. It's one of the strongest you can get in the game in terms of laning prowess, so just going to be something they have to be aware of here. In terms of priority, though, they have so much control right now, FPX do. It's hard to imagine a world where they don't end up winning this Rift Herald fight, and that's with a Rumble that can stack at very early stages of the game. Such an important ultimate on top of the team fight, but I mean, getting that prio and rotating over to the Herald is going to be the first step, and it's going to be the toughest one, I'd say, here for Rogue.
And Braum is also incredibly strong at 5v5s in terms of laning to engage reports, but his setup for ganks is not as good, and we kind of seen that Doinb thus far has been able to just shove in the wave, and he's never really been at danger of getting punished. Either his team is hovering around the side, and thus far, he hasn't actually found an opening, but he will continue to keep looking for them, and if he does find one and we also get a kill on him, it might be a rough go.
Yeah, and he's down by about a wave or something like that. And by being able to leave his lane so often and only paying that as the price, you'll take that any day of the week. So FPX, as you can see, a whole lot of vision. Their line of control wards across the map, absolutely beautiful. And they're just going to continue to move further forward in this game. We've got under a minute until that Rift Herald does come up. Level 6s should be available here for the bottom side as Larssen pulling that wave on over.
This is that timing you were talking about where they have the level 6 advantage. Crisp is level 4, but not going to be able to actually do anything with it. And it's not really that big of an edge on the bottom side of the map there alone. That ward in the river next to the Dragon Pit is going to make it so rotation over from Larssen, who also doesn't have prio, is not realistic here. So unfortunately, there's not really much Rogue can do before this Herald fight. Even having to use the Equalizer here to actually clear this wave is no good for odoamne, and this looks like a free Herald to me.
Yeah, that's really big because that is so much of your potential power budget that you have. The Rumble is known for how strong he is around these early game team fights just because of having the one level of Equalizer, right? It goes back to what, like Season 3-4, what Rumble was picked just so you could secure Drakes. And now that fight, it looks like Rogue still might want to opt into it, but it should be a lot harder.
You can see 3 versus 2 there in the mid lane as now odoamne having to deal with Nuguri. He's just going to combo him. Bombed him away as Crisp, now down to about half health, as Inspired has to safeguard his way out. Didn't want to go too deep on that one, as Tian in the meantime is just taking Shelly by his lonesome. odoamne looking to try and get down here. The flash forward from Nuguri. It's a lot of damage, and that is the Rumble just taking down a solo kill for Nuguri for the second for the game for FPX. But it's not over just yet. Trymbi's still in the middle of this fight as Tian, the Heartbreaker, comes in. The bullet time is avoided, and he gets himself out of there in the form of the Braum.
Oh man, that's the dream value there on the Viego to shut down the bullet time there at the end of the fight. And going into this tournament, I was so impressed with Rogue's first Herald and first Drake control. Their setup on objectives in the early game is so good. And this is another one of those scenarios where if they had the proper tools, if they had that Equalizer just now coming off cooldown, this is a fight you can maybe win. The rotation was almost perfectly timed there for HunSama, who's still got that extra push in the bottom lane, but it's not enough because the team fighting is so clean for FPX here. And I mean, it's a really tough scenario now because now the gold lead is going to balloon even further.
And while the jungle matchup is better than it was last time, as we look at the new X Effect replay here, the topside matchup is still so rough as Trymbi.
That's a flash, as Lwx does have the passive on him, but Crisp is going to make his way in now. Not level 6 yet, so Solar Flare not available, as he does land the Zenith Blade, however. That's a deadly flourish as Lwx trying to get some damage down. Trymbi is a pretty beefy Braum. He'll be absolutely fine. And FPX thinking about a potential dive, but I don't think they're going to go for it.
Especially with Inspired still in the area. They know that ult was placed. But as I was getting into, remember the game against Domon where Khan really was able to get the better end of odoamne, and we see it similarly here. Nuguri gets his Jayce, they get the counter pick in the Rumble, and then getting shoved in lane and falling behind to a certain extent in CS, I don't think is the end of the world. But then the combination of that Equalizer having to be invested just to clear the wave, and odoamne then trying to roam, match the rest of his team, and help out with a Herald that might might have already been gone, only to then get solo killed, meaning that no matter what happens, FPX are going to be up a person, makes it so much harder. And now, again, a friendly deficit for Rogue. The Drake goes over to FPX as well. They should be able to just make it out cleanly here. They still have the Herald in the docket. They're feeling good.
Yeah, and it feels bad as Rogue, right? Because you've got these high-value level 6s, and it's both the neutral objectives on the map being taken for free by FPX and actually grabbing a little bit extra in that Herald fight. See whether Rogue can continue to move on forward. It's still a good team fight, and of course, if you can layer all of those ultis together, things could definitely work out. As Nuguri, no flash, remember. Larssen looks for the chains, doesn't find them, as now Nuguri looking to turn it onto odoamne, but he's just going to get burnt down, and Larssen picks up that kill in the end. Doinb turns up a little bit later. In the meantime, on the bottom side of the map, Rogue doing it again, and I guess, no, it's not a team fighting composition. They're just going to take picks around the map. That's what it's built for, gentlemen, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to get these small windows to find mistakes out of FPX, you take it anytime you can. Every opportunity you get, you're going to look for that extra gold. Grabbing the teleport there away from Doinb as well is going to feel like a really nice win here for Rogue. Small baby steps potentially back into this game, but the problem still stands that now the item spikes are starting to get hit. The Eclipse is online here for Nuguri. The next fight isn't going to be any easier, but at least you're one step closer.
Clearly has been an inversion of Rogue time. Well, now their mid game is just insane. Because this follows the same pattern, right? And something that I really do have to give them credit for, and that is easy to underestimate, is the mental fortitude of, again, taking such a rough fight, falling behind against a team that coming into the tournament was touted as one as the absolute favorite. And yeah, they've shown weakness, but still going for their respective place is essential. Might get collapsed on now, though.
Yep, Crisp going to clear out that ward. Trymbi going to do the same thing, as that is going to be a whole bunch of plates raining down onto FPX. Text Flash to come over there as Crisp just pays a visit. As Hansama battling against Lwx. That's the bullet time. He's taken down relatively low, but Nuguri's teleported in. That's the curtain call, and Hansama doesn't have a whole lot of places to go. He's playing some DDR pretty decently here, is now trying to work out when he has the opportunity. He's got this Strut available as well, and he gets himself out.
Inspired is here.
That was an escape room at like the hardest possible level, and Hansama, he thought all the way through it.
I mean, that was actually insane to watch. I mean, this is why this player, Hansama, is considered by many the best AD carry in this group. His positioning is so good, his control is so good.
And here we go back to the play that we saw earlier, which was very straight up overextension into a Braum ult. There should never be an opportunity for Trymbi to just hit a Jhin point blank. But the desk was talking about, you know, maybe Hansama, best AD in the group. Well, that sold me. That was incredible. Able to sidestep multiple shots, able to side the shock blast of Jayce. Spend enough time so that you can flash over that wall. Whew.
Yeah, it was really clean. Really, really nicely done. Only got hit by one bullet as well of that curtain call. Very nicely done. So certainly making things work, as now Doinb takes down the top outer turret. That is going to be the first of the game for FPX.
Indeed, a lot of extra farm coming through here.
And remember, guys, our final match of the day. Faker Daga against Faker himself. 100 Thieves versus T1. It's going to be a banger. Make sure you check it out. As in the meantime, we have FPX versus Rogue.
Yeah, it was our Mercedes featured matchup, of course. The big one of the day there at the end. We'll see how that ends up going. It's a really awesome one to conclude the night, as Larssen has actually been able to get away with so much here on the top side of the map, and he's LeBlanc, so that's just how it goes. It's really difficult to punish this champion. Now they're trying to set up here.
Chains connect, yeah, Trymbi gonna come on in, but he's a little bit too late, and yeah, Tian was just in the right place at the right time.
Caster curse there, I think a little.
Come on, Wolves, you're better than that.
As Inspired looking for it here as well, as Tian's trying to keep himself alive. Doinb, though, to protect his jungler. Crisp roaming up at the same time. Solar Flare's available as well. He can use it over this wall, but he blast cones in instead. Looks for the Zenith Blade, and he will find it. Still holding onto the ult. He still has even more CC available. In the meantime, it's another solo kill from Nuguri somewhere on the map. I think it was on the bottom lane. Everything's just happening all at once here.
And you understand the sentiment for Larssen, because he knows I was able to carry almost against Damwon. I am reasonably fed, but flashing forward like that is Nuguri.
There's the bullet time, just caught back in, I think, just a little bit.
I mean, you've got to be so careful. Hansama is starting to get some extra gold he's not supposed to have in this game. He already is 30 CS up. And this is one of those players, you know, I'm getting a little bit of flashes of doggo from even the play-ins where you give this misfortune too much money, and then suddenly this mid-game becomes free.
And it is those opportunities that Rogue need to look for, right? So I understand the sentiment, but even with people that are helping you in the area, you can't flash forward on the turret like that. And how does Nuguri do it again?
We'll see.
Mini wave here.
Yeah, well, Odo overheats, so he doesn't really get to do anything, and then Nuguri just takes him out. That's a Korean Jayce right there.
Yep.
I wouldn't have made that assessment if I was Nuguri, you know, like he's down so much more health and he's just like, no, if I hit all of my buttons, does the math in his head, I do, yeah, exactly that amount of damage.
Odoamne doesn't really have items online just yet. He's been so bullied in this early game. And it just continues, you know, being pulled off the map like that's going to cost you a lot of experience and cost you a lot of gold. This is going to be another Rift Herald crashing through, extra turret here for FPX. They have so much control over the map now. And these next few objective fights, I mean, as Rogue here, you have a comp that can do well in team fights. If you can set up some picks, if you do that poke damage as Larssen, but he's not really online just yet.
They actually saved the turret. Did you see that double up? That was a lot of damage.
And that is what you're looking towards as Rogue. We have seen that FPX, as well as I think they are individually playing in this game, are still capable of making mistakes, right? Walking up too far, maybe over-aggressing. And if you can get a kite back going as Rogue on top of either a bullet time, an equalizer, or ideally both, you will feel a lot better, and there is the opportunity. But as Wolf already pointed out, there is a lack of lockdown, and it's not like FPX really has to hard force with the amount of range that they have available. They're up 2 Drakes, right? Which means that if they get the mountain in 5 minutes, which how the state of the game is currently feeling, I don't know if Rogue can really wrestle control back before then, is going to feel very similar to what we saw last game, where then Rogue are going to be forced to move up even if they don't want to. And with this comp, the lack of hard engage, the lack of lockdown available, that's going to feel really, really bad.
Yeah, you want a comp that's going to be coming to you. You've got things like the equalizer and the answers that Rogue does have. Not quite necessarily working out. It's a comp that relies on having vision control, but they're having that controlled to them. Although they do have a lot of wards on the map right now. It's FPX coming out of base now, looking to try and clear things up. They will do so. Chris moving on in as Hansama. He's feeling pretty good. The only one on Rogue at the moment. Feels like he has complete control. And the gold lead was about 3k. It's now slipped back to about 2. And yes, those Drakes are a problem, but this is by no means over or anything like that at this stage. Larssen in the side lane, looking to try and get some work done to this outer turret.
The problem in this game that Rogue is facing very quickly is that they aren't going to be able to remove these wards very safely in both objective pits, nor will they be able to deep ward themselves because the waves are constantly crashing into them. Inspired and Trymbi both can't really get in there to sweep. They can't place deep wards. This means FPX can always threaten, and there's no fear that a LeBlanc is going to appear.
It's still going to be a flash forward, though, as there's the Glacial Fissure. Lwx is going to avoid it, though, as in goes Inspired, gets the kickback. As Nuguri's going to get taken down. The bullet time is huge as well, but Tian, he's getting all of the resets, and now the curtain call comes in to double kill for the Jhin, and now the Realm Warp on top of Hansama is now going to flash, not going to get deadly flourished, and Larssen's still alive as well. Tian needs to be a little careful here as the Heartbreaker comes on over the wall. Not going to be able to find any more resets, but it was a fight win from FPX.
I mean, Viego is just so slippery, too, in these types of scenarios. He can actually chase like that. He's like, ooh, can I get away with this turret as well here on the bottom side? He'll not be able to do so, but these are the fights that Rogue are looking for. They have these small windows, these tiny opportunities, and yet still, at this stage of the game, they're not powerful enough to pull it off.
And I understand the kind of inclination of Rogue to try and pull the trigger there, but you do see the limitation that they're somewhat run into, right? Even if FPX being this far up, it takes Trymbi everything just to get on top of Nuguri and lock him down for a little bit. That's not enough. It's a really, really nice kind of split fight that's created there by Hansama with the bullet time, but the actual damage isn't quite there. And then as soon as someone dies, the Viego starts resetting, and there's really nothing for you to do, especially with how far behind individually some of the members of Rogue are. And now you took one bad fight in an opportunity, didn't really have to, and now that subsequent Drake fight in 2 minutes, 4k gold behind, giving over a Mountain Soul point against an FPX is not going to be a fun time.
Definitely not. Larssen actually taking half of his health bar from an empowered shock blast. Nuguri is gigantic.
Yeah.
At this point in time, Ghostblade now complete as well. He can just freely split push with no inhibitions whatsoever. He can run real fast to get himself out of there.
2 critical flashes down for Rogue as well. Inspired, not going to have that extra range to look for deep kicks.
Larssen finds the double chain though, as there's the flash out from Nuguri. Actually high value. Now Tian has to get out as well, uses the ultimate. Solar Flare comes through just for a slow and a bit of zoning. As Rogue actually biting back a little bit here, although they don't get any kills, but they get a couple of summoner spells. Definitely feels good.
And they get Nuguri's flash. I was talking about the flashes being down Inspired, not going to be able to have that extra kick, or extra closer on the kick there to get behind somebody like Nuguri. But Nuguri now can't escape from that. If Larssen is able to find him and get on top of him in the side lane, or as he's rotating into an objective, there's some kill pressure there. Blowing up Nuguri before a fight starts eliminates so much of that poke damage that FPX needs to lead into an objective, so there's still hope, and getting that flash is actually quite huge.
And with the itemization that FPX has gone for, there is not like we've seen a lot of focus on plated steel caps. Instead, we see a lot of magic resist getting picked up, and that's going to make Odo, who is considerably behind on this Rumble's job, even harder. And it puts more pressure on Hansama, who, while he's been playing exceptionally, has thus far also finished his collector, and will be able to do a lot of damage. It also means that for FPX, it's pretty singular. If you ever kill Hansama, the remainder of Rogue should not be able to do a lot. So Rogue need to be so incredibly clean in making sure that Hans can do the most damage that he is able to. But the setup for that, I think, is quite hard, especially with the amount of poke that's available. A single shock blast on top of Hans, if Trymbi isn't there to keep him safe, is going to immediately put him out of the fight.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. And they've been completely blocked from this Dragon Pit as well. It's like, yes, Rogue have some control around, you know, this opening around their mid-outer turret. But
yeah.
That ain't going to do
I like how you said that.
Yeah.
It's a tiny space, but it's theirs.
Yeah, there's a little bit of space there.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, at least they know that FPX is not going to walk up and kill them after they take this Drake as well. But I mean, yeah, I think you said it in so few words that there's not a lot of vision control, and this has just been a fundamental issue. When Nuguri got so far ahead, the side lanes are so well controlled from them, and Doinb, who's been down on CS a majority of the game, is now also starting to take a lead in farm. That's usually how the copy pasta goes, but I gotta say, you know, Rogue here, hanging on by a thread, weren't able to take that fight because of the vision problem. But I think there's still hope if they can get those picks. Like, there are ways to which their composition can blow up a single target, like Nuguri, like Doinb, if mistakes are made. The proactive plays are going to have to continue to be there. Hopefully not the overextension like we saw before. Here's one of them.
Yeah, it's a big teleport to come on in here. Gale Force forward from Hansama as Nuguri is going to be dead yet again.
That's how you do it. You got to find picks like this.
Gotta go for Nash. Gotta try and force it as hard as you can, surely, but it looks like they don't want to take the risk, and I understand it, because it is a really high risk, but at the same time, I don't know if you don't try to push as hard as you can here as Rogue, if it's going to be enough.
Well, it's 30 seconds, but there's teleport available from Nuguri, and Rogue not really wanting to risk it all for that particular moment. I don't really blame them.
No, I think it's probably the safer call, but that's my issue is the safer call going to be enough?
Yeah, when are you going to have a better opportunity?
Exactly, because in 3 minutes, you are going to have to win that fight, because the one thing that you still have available as Rogue is burst, right? Outside of Hansama being able to like channel a full ultimate into 5 people, which should never happen. He is also going to be very bursty with double up with the crit, and then Larssen is self-explanatory. And then if you lose the ability to do things like this because of the Mountain Soul shield, I don't see a way back in for Rogue. So it's so incredibly important that they get that fight going. But yeah, again, they pick up Nuguri, and it's nice, but what else do you get?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, too, is Doinb was pushing bottom super far under that inner turret. He had teleport available. He's got Realm Warp. You can't punish him either. And it feels like we've seen so many of these games here in this meta in Worlds where one pick isn't enough because it's just so easy to rotate back over if you don't have control over the map. The team that loses someone can actually punish the Baron and win the game, like, in that moment.
It happened multiple times. Yeah.
And it's a 3.5k gold lead. FPX is still very, very strong in this moment as well. Tian is terrifying on this Viego. LPL Viegos, man. It's becoming a bit of a thing. As now the bottom lane of Rogue just trying to move forward, clear out mid wave, but without that turret, and it's so dark on the map. It's just so difficult.
And as FPX is now in the well on the way of the 3rd game, I think we can safely say that while I don't think they reached the level that maybe some of us were expecting coming into the tournament. They are starting to look more and more like themselves, right? The Damwon game, meta read didn't feel right, execution wasn't there. Then against C9, there were a couple of openings, but in the end, they were able to make it. And then this game has been their cleanest thus far. Given up a few kills left and right, but in terms of objectives, they've had an iron grip of this game. And most importantly, it feels to me like they're also very aware that if they don't majorly misstep and give Rogue the opportunity to try and get a big jungle skirmish to get their way back in the game, I say that.
Yeah, possible opportunity for a potential fight, but there's just too much vision. FPX, what they've been doing beautifully this game is dotting I's and crossing T's, like all of it. It's like the only letters they've been writing this entire game.
Yeah.
Because they have complete control.
To go back to Chronicler's point as well, like that was one of my points going into today, is I feel like in terms of expectations, FPX has been the most disappointing team actually of Worlds so far, just in the fact that everyone was saying this team could go all the way. You know, I was myself personally looking at EDG as the strongest team from the LPL, but most people disagreed. Most people said FPX. Then that Damwon Kia series really disappointed us. It's a bit shaky against Cloud9. And I think what they've learned through that loss in that very shaky game against C9 is how to minimize mistakes. We still see a few of them here. We do see a few overextensions, but they are taking a lead, taking vision control, and playing about as standard of a game of League of Legends as you can from ahead, given the draft that they have. And that's what you want to see. That's the consistency you're looking for here to make sure you get out of this group in top 2.
And in 30 seconds, it's going to be the fight that very possibly might decide the game. If Rogue don't blow it open big here, if they don't get the big bullet time, the equalizer, backline access, I don't know if they're going to be able to get away back into this game, Atlus.
Yep, and FPX, they're just going to grab control of that mid wave, brute force it, and now move in towards this river. 10 seconds to go. Nuguri on the bottom side of the map, looking to pick up that minion wave. Rogue moving on over. They are on top of that control ward. They have to get here. They have to try and stop this. This Mountain Soul is going to be absolutely massive for FPX. Make it rain coming on down. Crisp. Couldn't quite get any flank or anything like that off at the moment. Inspired moves on over as well, but again, on top of a ward. Trymbi isn't, though, as he throws the Winter's Bite over the wall. Larssen dashing on forward, looking for Lwx, looking to take him out as Hansama channels the ultimate, but everyone in FPX does get themselves out. Inspired, not able to lock down Crisp, as now the curtain call comes on in. This is just to soften up the members of Rogue, get themselves out of this dragon pit. But FPX's health bars aren't exactly the highest right now. Rogue certainly with a life lead.
Yeah, even with the magic resist that Cronicler was talking about earlier, that equalizer is going to do quite a bit of chip here. Look at the angle for Inspired as well.
Yeah, teleport coming on in from Nuguri as well on the bottom side. This could be a 50-50, and it's one that Rogue needs to win. Crisp, he's too low. He can't actually go in now as the Drake looking to try and reset. They're not going to let it. Down to 2,000 health as Doinb immediately goes golden. Trymbi's very low. Crisp flashing out there outside of the pit as Doinb looks to try and grab the Drake himself, but he's not able to. He stays alive, though, for so long. What was he, invisible? That was ridiculous. They're not able to take him out. And FPX lose no one. They do lose the Drake. Rogue saved that. But somehow, it is no one on FPX dying and then picking up 2 kills. 3 kills.
And I don't know if that's worth it, because yes, as you point out, you've staved off immediate defeat, but giving over a Baron to FPX with the amount of seats that they have available might be just as bad, and that is the reward that FPX have rightfully earned after how strong their early game has been, how they've been able to play around their dominance in multiple lanes, pick up the Baron, increase their gold leads. Looking rough for Rogue.
I mean, also FPX just with such discipline in that fight, they were willing to give the Drake to look for the team fight win instead, which is, it's a win-win scenario for them. And going back to, is it worth it for Rogue? You don't really have good options. Both choices are bad.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Both choices are bad. So what do you really do here? But I really appreciate that FPX don't just go, well, they don't pull a Genji and kind of walk away from the Drake and say, well, we're going to give the Drake and we're just going to walk away from this fight. No, they go all in on this, because even if they fail this and lose the Drake, this is still a very recoverable situation, but they deal with it so well. Look at Doinb on the side here. Survives with so few health and still helps turn this fight around, as Nuguri is very happy to clean up house.
Yeah, it was like half a health bar. Half a health point for Doinb, and just Larssen didn't auto-attack him, wasn't quite able to make that one work out, but wouldn't have even mattered, right? Even if he falls down, it's still a win for FPX.
And here you see a lot of the elements that have made FPX such a terrifying team is their team fighting and their limits. And we saw this from LNG earlier as well. It's just insane. Like how well aware, how much damage they can take. It's so hard to deal with.
Yeah, it's real tough. Now FPX looking to push 1-3-1 available here with both the Jayce and the Ryze. Pretty fantastic in the side lane, pushing on forward. Zoe going to be waving sadly here.
Yeah, the Red Bull
Larssen is going to
power.
bounce forward.
Red Bull power play is ticking up here. I mean, Rogue, it's do or die time right now, and
Oh my goodness.
look at the damage your two backs channeling right now. But FPX have such a free push. Doinb's on the side lane. Realm warping forward. They want to end this game very soon. They can force a fight this way, and if Rogue don't respond, they slowly lose the game.
And the problem of having 3 soul points is that you only need to get 1.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, the first one didn't work out. Who cares, says FPX. We shove in multiple lanes. We're going to fight these turrets. If we get an opening, cool. If not, just need to win the next fight, and we will be still in a prime position to take over this game. And now for Rogue, like, what are your angles to get back into this game? I think it remains the same. You need either someone on FPX to misstep, get blown up by a combo of Larssen and Hansama, finding maybe a double tap, a chain, a combination of that, or walking into a multi-man old layer combo.
I mean, look at the items too. X-Drinker's up now for Nuguri. So Doinb's got his Banshee's Veil. Killing him even in this scenario is not very easy to pull off. In fact,
Yeah,
he's
is
going to
this
trade back.
even possible? Is there's the flash out from Hansama. He channels the bullet time, but Doinb was nowhere near it. He's able to get himself out of the way. Had no flash available, but he's still going to be all right. The curtain call comes in. That is going to be the Gale Force, getting Hansama to relative safety. Trymbi not going to be so lucky. He's got a big door, but unfortunately he doesn't have his life. And FPX with 5 members on the top side of the map think that this is their avenue into the Rogue base.
Certainly looks that way, even though we've had some Stormtrooper shots here for LWX this game.
You think I'm saying Rebel?
No. I can't let LWX take credit for missing those. That's Hansama going full Luke Skywalker, making sure that all of them miss. But as you point out, I don't know if it will matter.
I certainly don't think it is going to matter, unfortunately, at this stage. This is looking like the beginning of the end.
Certainly is, as the Nexus turrets now under fire. Okay, FPX not going to bite off more than they can chew. This has been very disciplined. I mean, outside of Nuguri dying all the time in side lanes, but we know that that's how a lot of teams with Nuguri win, is by Nuguri dying in side lanes and then the rest of the team getting advantages.
He's been doing it for, what, like 2.5, 3 years at this point? It's a tradition.
He's made it a strategy.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, though, we've seen both the extremely disciplined FPX in this game, but also the pull the trigger, be aggressive, and absolutely all in team fights side of FPX in this game, and usually get one or the other, which leads to a weak side, but not in this game, not in this particular case.
But FPX did make a mistake here, because by pushing so hard and not actually getting anything, they've given Rogue the opportunity to set up a vision line around this dragon. Inspired is in flank position, and do not forget how dangerous this team fight still can be.
And this time he's actually unseen on the vision that FPX has, so this is going to be very, very important. In fact, they're a bit lax on the vision, to be honest, but they get that ward over. Larssen is spotted. FPX just setting themselves up here in this river. There's another curtain call to come on forward, and Inspired's going to step on the trap, and he doesn't have the smite in this pit. That was very, very strange. He was looking for the flank. Instead, he tries to brute force it here as the bullet time comes down, but Doinb has the best item in the game, and he's going to be completely fine now. LWX able to walk on in with guns blazing. It's a double kill so far. I believe that's the triple, as the teleport is going to get Larssen back to his base, but Nuguri's there first, and he's looking to take down these Nexus turrets. This, I think, is it, ladies and gentlemen. FPX, they're going to be able to grab themselves the Mountain Soul, and then they'll finish off Rogue. That was very cute from Nuguri as well, as he gets the solo kill to finish this one off. FPX looking so much better in this game. Move to 2-1.
Yeah, a lot of discipline in this game from FPX, and I really love to see the change in their playstyle. Humbled by those first 2 games, I think, in a lot of ways, and for Rogue, I think a lot of people criticize some of the team fights they decided to take to the mid to late game, but as we pointed out several times, lose-lose scenarios make you look bad no matter which one you take. So a lot of those fights they were desperate to take, and they had a composition to where if the itemization wasn't as good as it was for FPX, you do get those picks, you do get those blow-ups on targets, and maybe they could have had that miracle comeback, just wasn't meant to be.
And as you pointed out, has FPX been perfect? No, but neither have Dom1, right? Who are also, even RGE have dropped the ball left and right, but they're still able to pick up the wins. At the end of the day, they're 2-1. They look to be scaling very nicely into this tournament. And for Rogue, this feels painful because it's such an important game, right? Like now you are gonna feel or gonna get out into that second round robin feeling a lot less good, especially after that Dumb game. You felt like maybe this one was attainable. And individually, I still think there were a lot of highlight performances. Of course, we're going to talk a lot about Hans Sama, who had some ankle-breaking plays. But even Larssen in the early game was able to exert a lot of pressure. It just wasn't enough.
No, and I feel like just the turnaround from FPX is so incredibly impressive, right? They go from having some questions in their meta reading, their drafting. You know, I think that a lot of people